Ever get that feeling like when you meet someone who seems to be amazing at like a million things and you're kind of left wondering, how do they do it all? Well, today we're diving deep into the world of someone like that, Andy Lane.
And what's so fascinating about this deep dive is we're not just, skimming through a resume. We're trying to uncover those golden threads, the why behind the why, what makes Andy tick, and how he's managed to combine technology, creativity, even education so seamlessly.
Honestly, looking at his CV, it's kind of intimidating. Like, how does one person do all that?
Well, it's not magic, though. It might seem that way at first glance. It's more about, I think, how he's blended this fascinating mix of skills and experiences. Take, for example, his master's. Did you know he has a master's in library and information science?
Really? I have to admit, I didn't even get past all the amazing projects on his website.
Oh, it's all connected, trust me. See, for his master's thesis, he dove deep into this whole world of AI and how it could predict learning behavior. So already you can tell he's starting as quite the data whiz.
That's a far cry from designing websites, though, which is what he's doing now. Or at least that's what initially caught my eye.
It seems like a jump, I'll grant you that, but there's a method to his madness. Think about it. If you understand how people learn best, especially in this digital age, why wouldn't you then use that knowledge to design online experiences that actually make people want to learn? It's almost like he's reverse engineering the process.
So he's not just predicting how we learn, he's creating the spaces that actually make us want to learn.
Exactly. He's gone from data to design, but with this really cool through line of understanding information processing and then, translating that to the visual world, the world of experience.
Okay, but we can't gloss over the fact that he designs websites for embassies. How does that even factor in?
I know, right? You don't see that on every resume. But it makes sense if you think about the kind of skills you'd need for that. You have to be fluent in the language of tech, the language of design, and you got to be a strong communicator. He's obviously comfortable in those international waters.
It's almost like he's mastered some universal language of design and communication. And it doesn't stop there. Award-winning photography, too. Is that like a hobby turned side hustle or something more?
See, I think this is a prime example of what I like to call the portfolio effect, where one skill feeds into another, strengthens it. His photography skills probably make his websites more visually compelling, don't you think? And maybe his eye for design informs his photography composition. It's this feedback loop.
So it's not just being a jack of all trades, but understanding how those trades work together, feed off each other. That's really fascinating.
And I think really valuable today. Imagine if, instead of spreading yourself thin, you could identify those threads in your own life, those interests that might seem totally separate, and find a way to weave them together. That's where the magic happens.
That's a really cool way to look at it. And it makes me even more curious to see how this portfolio effect plays out in other areas of Andy's life. Like, let's talk about his YouTube channel. Okay, so we've got Andy, master of like a million different things, but then he goes and shares it with the world. His YouTube channel, that's where things get really interesting for me.
I know, right? It's one thing to have these skills, but to actually share them so freely, it shows a real generosity.
Yeah.
He's all about empowering others.
And he makes tech seem so approachable. Like he's got tutorials on everything, Notion, WordPress, even video editing software, which can feel like its own language sometimes.
And he actually makes it fun, which I love. It's not just those dry technical how-tos. He shows you how to actually use this stuff to be more creative, more efficient.
Speaking of, you mentioned Notion earlier, and I have to give him credit. I only started using it because of his tutorials. He makes those workflows, which seem kind of intimidating at first. Makes sense.
See, that right there, that's the educator in him. He gets that real learning happens when you connect with something, when it's relevant to your life, not just some abstract concept.
It's all connected, just
Yeah.
like we were talking about with his other work and with his YouTube channel. He's not just teaching, he's building a community, which is so cool.
It's true. And I think that's where some of the most exciting innovation happens, when we get people from all different backgrounds sharing ideas. It's contagious, that energy.
So to recap, we've got this incredibly talented guy, Andy, who's mastered this range of skills, seamlessly blends them together, and then shares that knowledge with anyone who'll listen. But now for the big question. What can we, the non-Andys of the world, take away from all of this?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Why do we do these deep dives? It's not just to be impressed by someone else, right? It's about finding those golden nuggets, those little bits of wisdom that we can actually apply to our own lives. And luckily, Andy's story is practically overflowing with those.
Well, don't leave us hanging. What are some of those golden nuggets? What can our listeners take away from Andy's very unique and very successful journey? All right, lay it on us. What can we learn from Andy's journey?
Well, I think the first takeaway, and maybe the most important, is to really embrace those things that make you, you. You know, those interests that might seem all over the place. That's your secret sauce right there.
So ditch the boxes. Unleash your inner polymath.
Uh, uh.
I love it. What else?
Don't ever stop learning. Andy certainly hasn't. He's constantly picking up new skills, whether it's the latest software or a whole new creative medium. That's how he stays ahead of the curve. And it's something we can all benefit from.
It's true. The world's changing so fast these days. It's like that saying, the best time to learn something new was yesterday. The second best time is today.
Exactly. And here's another gem. When you share what you know, you're not just helping someone else, you're actually solidifying your own understanding. It's amazing how that works.
It's true. Like, suddenly you have to explain it in a way that makes sense, and boom, it clicks for you too. It's like a win-win.
Right. And you never know, the person you're helping might have something to teach you in return. It becomes this cool exchange of knowledge.
So if we're taking notes here, it sounds like the future belongs to the curious, the adaptable, the ones who can connect those dots that other people might miss. It's inspiring in a way, right? Like there's no one right path. You just have to find what lights you up and run with it.
Beautifully put. It's all about that lifelong learning, sharing what we discover, and being open to those unexpected connections.
So listeners, here's a little something to think about. What are those seemingly unrelated skills or interests that you have? And how could you combine them in a way that maybe, just maybe, unlocks something amazing?
Don't underestimate yourself. And if you're looking for a little inspiration, Andy's website is a great place to start. You can really see that multi-hyphenate energy in action. We'll make sure to link to it in the show notes.
Consider it a digital mood board for your own multi-hyphenate journey. And hey, if you end up creating something incredible because of this deep dive, let us know. We'd love to hear about it.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep creating.